You think you can just waltz in and take what never belonged to you. Her voice cut through the hush, sharp as broken glass. Hand it over, now, he snapped, shoving the battered folder across the lacquered table. Her hands trembled, fingertips grazing the rough cardboard. All this time, you thought no one would ever find out. You buried it with him. He sneered, eyes bright with panic. You can't prove a damn thing. She leaned closer, voice icy and measured. I have everything, signed, dated. They're waiting outside your move. He lunged, desperate, knocking the chair aside. Papers scattered. Voices shouted in the hall. She didn't flinch. Someone banged the doors wide open. You want war? Let's go right now. Before any of this, the sirens, the shouting, the final reckoning, she had nothing but a key, a child, and a storm rolling in from the cotton fields 3 days before Christmas. The pharmacy lights flickered, picking out a row of Gatorade bottles and her daughter asleep on the plaid backseat. Marley's knees were curled tight to her chest, her ponytail limp over the thin blanket. Megan's own lips were cracked from December air, her nurse's scrubs layered under a frayed coat streaked with age-old stains. The fuel gauge winked red. She counted 3 crumpled 20s between her numb fingers. 30 hours in this borrowed Buick now, and the hope that Otsiego's small-town attorneys would forget today's eviction papers. Behind her eyelids, memory replayed yesterday, the way her brother had stood in the judge's hallway, booted and grinning, holding out a single, bent key. You want your share, Meg. Here, go reclaim the empire one table at a time, he drawled, laughter tumbling from his mouth as their cousins jeered. All that waited was a shuttered steakhouse on Route 7, windows dust-caked and a roofline bowing inward like tired shoulders. Megan's name was scrawled on the deed by a stranger's hand, worthless, everyone said, except maybe for firewood. That morning, a wind howled against the car doors and rattled a yellowing envelope that had fallen under the seat. Marley, rubbing her eyes, handed it to Megan. Mom, was this always there? In her whispery morning voice. Megan flicked it open, her grandfather's spidery handwriting inside. Never give up the north wall. Some things are kept alive by silence. Love, Pop. She closed her eyes. Sometimes the only way out is through brick, rot, and lies. If you've ever been pushed to the edge, told you're lucky to get what little's tossed your way, but felt a stubborn ember inside telling you the story isn't over, keep listening. The Buick's wheels crunched over blue gravel as Megan pulled up to Birdsong, the old steakhouse. White paint chipped from the carved sign swinging overhead. Only the crows watched from winter branches, black eyes tracking her as she stepped out and stretched stiff legs. Half the town, it seemed, remembered their family, but Megan's mother had always called her the charity case, the nurse, the dropout, the single mom. Megan pressed a hand against the cold glass, peering into the dark belly of the dining room. Everything she owned was stuffed in the trunk. Marley's faded suitcase, a battered CPR bag, and a box of urgent care stubs. Beside the warped front door, tucked under a loose brick, she found an iron key, old, cold, teeth dulled with age. It must have dropped from that yellow envelope, or maybe it had always been here, waiting. She fumbled it into the lock, heart stuttering. The door groaned, swinging into musty gloom. Inside, the hush was total except for a distant scuttle from under the sink. Marley's voice. Can I help? Look, is there, like, a secret room? There was hope in her question, that small flicker copying the one in Megan's chest. Boxy booths gathered dust. In the back, the hint of a brick wall caught Megan's eye, bricks that didn't belong, their color off, mortar puckered. On the table, a torn ledger marked 1979, names in looping script. She pressed her palm against the brick, feeling for some catch. Her thumb landed on a divot. There, a brick gave slightly, and behind it, a circle of pale stone, scraped and scored as though by ancient hands. Marley stepped back a second, Megan breathed. She wedged a tire iron into the seam and pried. The stone dislodged, revealing a cool, dark shaft sinking into cold earth. Mom, what is that? Marley's question was more awe than fear. A child's voice, one empty restaurant, a key that didn't belong. but real secrets were always buried deeper than money. Megan stared down into the black. We're about to find out. The north wall concealed a rough hole, just large enough for her to slither through, scraping her scrubs and freezing her hands. For a moment she hesitated, glancing back at Marley, whose blue eyes were fixed on hers, wide and hungry for promise. I'll only be a minute. You stand right here by the door, she ordered, trying to keep her voice steady. She always tried. Marley fidgeted but nodded, clutching a cracked flashlight. Inside, Megan inched her way forward. Encroaching moss slicked the rocks and tangles of roots pressed overhead like greedy fingers. Her breath fogged in the cold. It was a cavern hollowed out below the restaurant's concrete slab, and there in the corner something gleamed beneath a crusted tarp. A faded army duffel, its surface pressed deep into sunken clay. The air layered thick with mildew and distant rot. She dragged the duffel free. Fingers shaking, she unzipped it to find a bundle of water-stained notebooks, a soiled photograph of men in fatigues, and, at the bottom, a brittle wallet stamped U.S. Patent Office, 1982. Hard in her throat, she flipped open the notebook. Drawings, schematics, careful blue lines marked plasma filament initiator. Her grandfather's name at the top, written in inky loops. At the end, a single page addressed to my girl. If you're reading this, then someone's come looking for what they were never meant to have. She didn't have time to finish. Footsteps echoed overhead, dust trickled from the ceiling. Marley's voice, small and tight, filtered down. Mom, there's someone up here. Megan's hands clenched the notebook. Everything she'd been told to give up on was sleeping beneath birdsong, and now the past was waking. There are moments every life splits in two, before you face the buried truth and after. Her brother's shadow blocked the winter light in the restaurant. You find something down there, Megan, his old smirk now sharpened by time. She recognized the way he lingered near the wall, refusing to look her in the eyes. Just rats, want to check for yourself, she fired back, even as her pulse galloped. He leaned in, don't get clever, that place isn't worth squat. But his eye twitched toward the opening, betraying a fissure of fear. Megan pocketed the book. Was that your plan? Give me the ruin while you snatch up everything else. He snorted, take the dump, get out, that's the deal. I gotta pick up my boy, he muttered, already half-turned, avoiding her gaze. When he disappeared behind the cypress trees, Marley let out a shaky breath. Are we okay? We're fine, Megan whispered, pressing the wallet to her chest. Let's go. Outside, the clouds pressed low, promising rain turned ice. She checked the time. 72 hours until the state would declare the town snowbound, roads impassable, buses canceled. A winter storm no one would get through until spring thaw. Her hands trembled as she turned the wheel towards the only person she trusted, her old friend Calvin, now Otsiego's nearest thing to a lawyer with a soul. Birdsong faded in the rearview, but Megan's hope, fragile as it was, smoldered quietly in her breast. By the time Megan reached Calvin's office, her knees ached from driving, and she found Marley fast asleep, head lolling on threadbare fleece. The legal office was a rambling Victorian on a muddy patch just off 3rd. Calvin was typing at his chipped desk, spectacled and weary. He looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. Meg, you look like hell, and that's my professional assessment. She managed a hollow laugh. The day's not over yet, I found something. Can you? She reached for the duffel, papers trembling in her grip. He motioned for her to sit, nodding to Marley on the waiting bench. You want her in here for this? Megan considered. Let's leave her with the coloring books. She's had enough grown-up secrets for one day. Within minutes, Calvin's face changed from jaded exhaustion to something sharper. He thumbed through the patent pages, pausing at her grandfather's schematics. Meg, you realize what's in here? He tapped his pen on the technical drawings. This isn't old restaurant stuff. This is defense tech, military grade, and here he mentions the patent ID, the year, and the contractor that stole it. Look. So he knew, Megan whispered. Calvin nodded grimly. If what he wrote is true, this patent alone is worth millions. Yet not a dime ever reached your family. You see these notes about the military contract. She pressed him. What does that mean for us? That means someone forged signatures, rerouted payments. Likely someone inside your family or someone close. Whoever assigned you the restaurant wanted to bury the real trail under something nobody would want. Marley colored quietly behind the glass. Megan's mind raced. But there's more. There's a wallet government ID from the 80s, but there's no name I recognize. Calvin flipped it open, mouth twisted. Meg, that's not your grandfather's, not only this. This belonged to a man declared missing, right? Your uncle. That's him. They said he was gone, moved away, but I always wondered, Megan stammered. Calvin's eyes lingered on a photo wedged inside. You may want to brace yourself. There's a chance this is much, much bigger than a simple property dispute. Before Megan could answer, her phone buzzed. Her brother's number blinked across the screen. Don't pick up, he's hunting. Let him sweat, Calvin advised. She nodded, her hands white-knuckled, as she stared at the duffel of secrets spilling onto the table. We need evidence, paste, official. And if there's a crime scene, the police will have to open it, Calvin said. Megan's gaze drifted to Marley. We're running out of time. The storm's coming. If they close the mountain pass, we won't get back to the barn until spring. 3 days, that's all she had. You want to know what happened to your uncle? We dig, but we do it by the book. You up for this? Calvin's tone softened, but his eyes didn't let her go. She nodded, resolute despite the quiver in her legs. I've come this far, haven't I? A hidden patent, a suspicious disappearance, a brother who'd rather let his own sister freeze than risk losing his windfall. Megan retrieved Marley, thanked Calvin, her mind already ticking forward. The real work was just beginning. The air was sour with snow when Megan pulled up to the old barn on Otsiego's outskirts. The rusted mailbox, long bleached by sun, now carried only a glossy new name, Easton Private. She parked and gently woke Marley, then stepped into thigh-high grass and the frigid dusk closing in. Her breath rose in the air like signal smoke as she searched the barn for a way in. Inside, the gloom was heavier than before. Megan's boots scuffed grit from the floorboards as she moved toward the far wall. A single, ancient light bulb dangled on a wire overhead. She raised the duffel and pressed the hidden notebook into a gap behind the ladder, praying it would stay dry. Suddenly, a door creaked open behind her. She tensed. Then Marley's voice, sleepy but alarmed, "There's a man outside, he keeps watching." Her brother stepped in from the shadows, stalking between hay bales, boots thudding quietly. You got what you wanted, right? I want answers, not just keys to a broken shell. Megan held his gaze steady. He scoffed, voice venomous. Let it go, he left. Everybody leaves, Meg. Why do you keep dragging up dead weight? He drifted around the barn, eyes scanning the rafters. Some things won't stay buried. He stopped. You always do this. Play detective, make a scene, go after ghosts. She kept her body between Marley and him. And you always run when the truth gets close. His face twisted. You have nothing on me. Megan reached into her coat and tossed the wallet onto a haystack. Maybe the state police see it differently. He lunged for the wallet, but Megan snatched it back, voice steady. Touch my daughter even once, and you won't be the one telling the story anymore. He swore and hissed, you have until tomorrow to get out. After that, I can't protect you anymore. Then he vanished into the woods. Her hands trembled as Marley hugged her tightly, blue eyes round with fear. That night, as the wind bit through the barn, Megan curled Marley into a nest of old quilts, clutching the patent pages and her phone. She called Calvin, voice low. We need a forensic accountant, someone who can track a missing trail across 20 years. My brother isn't working alone. Something's rotted down here for decades. He hesitated, then replied, I know someone. He's 2 hours south, but he'll come. Just make it to tomorrow. Megan let fatigue take her at last, but dreams pulled her back to that cave, the bones beneath the clay, the voices from 1982 that called her name. One day left, just one. Dawn brought freezing rain pelting the barn roof, a quicksilver drumbeat over the fields. Megan, shaking sleep from her bones, hurried Marley into the car. She followed Route 7 south, heart pounding as the Buick's heater gasped lukewarm air. She met Calvin and the forensic accountant, a soft-spoken man with a sharpness about the eyes, at a roadside diner inconvenient for anyone but the desperate. He sipped black coffee. "Here's what happens, Miss Easton. Inside your trust, what was supposed to be yours, your child's, is a record of withdrawals. Unauthorized, regular for over 20 years. 3 million total. All routed through shadow entities, most pointing to your brother's shell companies, some back to the defense contractor itself." Megan's ears rang, "So he took all of it while giving me the scraps, why?" The accountant shrugged, always the same answer, greed. Calvin leaned in, "You show this to the probate judge and it's checkmate." "But what if they stall the weather? If we move tonight, the judge will freeze every asset until the court hearing, even with a blizzard blowing," Calvin insisted, voice tight. Megan met Calvin's eyes. "If I go public with the patent, won't the military just bury me?" He considered. "Whistleblower statutes protect you if you've got the paperwork, but you'll need to prove the chain of custody, the bones, the notebook, the missing uncle. Chain it together, tight as you can." She nodded, all resolve. Rain hammered the window, washing the world to gray. Outside, Marley tapped her on the arm. "We're still safe, right?" Megan squeezed her hand. "As long as we stick together, we're unbreakable." The whole world was waiting, either to shut her out forever or to watch her rewrite the ending. Megan tucked the patent pages and wallet into a shopping bag and led Marley back to the car. She braced herself for one last drive through storm-soaked cotton fields. Night descended over the probate court, a hulk of faded brick squatting 2 stories above Market Street. The wind knifed sideways, flinging grit and ice into Megan's cheeks as she hurried Marley up the broad steps, clutching the battered duffel and Calvin's hand-drawn map of who owed what. "You're sure this judge will listen?" Megan whispered. Calvin murmured, "He's seen every trick in the book. That's why you have to nail every connection, every cent, every signature, every broken promise." They pushed inside. The hallway smelled of cold tile and old fear. Her brother was waiting outside courtroom C, leaning heavy against the wall, flanked by his lawyer and a cousin who'd sided with him since birth. He grinned, low and razor-thin. "You made it. I figured you'd freeze out there." She leveled him with her gaze. "I'm not here to play games." He smirked, drawing close enough for her to smell stale bourbon. "Good. Wouldn't want anyone to cry later when it all slips away." Calvin cut in, voice cool. "We have an appointment with the judge, and we have evidence." Her brother's jaw flexed. "You pull this stunt, you burn it all down. Think your little girl will like living in a tent?" His threat was as chilling as the wind outside. Megan's hand tightened over Marley's small shoulder. "We'll be fine. Not everyone is afraid to start over." The courtroom door swung open. Judge Ransom, a graying man with the patience of a glacier, looked down from his chair as everyone settled. Megan's brother began before they'd even sat. "Your Honor, my sister's making a lot out of nothing. The restaurant, the barn, she took those fair and square. The rest was distributed the way our father wanted." Calvin motioned to the judge. "With respect, Your Honor, we'd ask the court to admit new evidence. There's been systematic theft from the family funds and evidence of a crime buried for decades." Ransom held up a hand. "Present your case." Calvin gestured for Megan to step forward. Hands shaking, she placed the duffel on the table, extracted the patent notebook, the government ID, and the forensic accountant's report. She looked at her brother. "Recognize this." His smile faltered for a split second. She opened the notebook, reading aloud, "Prototype plasma filament adapted for handheld launch. Assigned to Defense Innovations, 1982. Royalties appropriated without author consent. Named parties Easton, Richardson, Calhoun. She laid the photo of her uncle, missing since 1983, on top. Her brother scoffed. Circumstantial, nothing but old scribbles and ghost stories. Calvin pointed out the ledger. Page 11, Your Honor, see the signatures, all forged, cross-referenced by expert. The transfers coincide with the dates the estate was supposed to grow, not shrink. The accountant's report was read into record. Over $3 million misappropriated, most withdrawals traceable to entities controlled by the defendant and Richardson's defense. Her brother barked, all legal, my father handled those papers. But the judge's expression was stone. There is a pattern here and a motive. Miss Easton, tell us why you waited until now. Megan's voice wavered, but she swallowed hard. Because I was always told I was less. That what I did, nursing, scraping by, wasn't worth bringing up, but I kept what mattered. I knew something was wrong. My daughter deserves better than secrets. The courtroom was silent, except for Marley's tiny sniff from the benches. Her brother snarled, stop pretending you didn't take advantage. You wanted the restaurant, go run it. In the silence, the judge spoke. You watched funds drain from the account while the rest of your family was told the estate dried up. You redirected payments through your own companies. You provided your sister nothing but a pile of bricks and a memory, knowing she'd say nothing. That's when Megan saw the fear slip into her brother's eyes. The same eyes he'd always used to look down at her across the dinner table. The same look right before he'd push her to take the blame as kids. She leaned in, voice razor sharp. You think you can just waltz in and take what never belonged to you? He jutted his chin defiantly. Hand it over, now, shoving the battered folder across the lacquered table. Her hands trembled, feeling the sweat and years piling up between her and the truth. All this time, you thought no one would ever find out. You buried it with him. You can't prove a damn thing, he spat, but the desperation in his voice cracked. She snapped open the ledger. I have everything, signed, dated. They're waiting outside your move. His lawyer reached for the folder, panic now clear. Her brother lunged, knocking the chair aside. Papers crashed to the floor as he shouted, you want war, let's go right now. Wooden doors banged open as two deputies rushed in, weapons at their sides. The judge raised his voice. Order, Mr. Easton, you will be remanded to custody. Marley reached for her mother's hand, eyes huge. Her brother twisted, furious and cornered. You'll lose it all anyway. You think this town will forgive you for tearing down the Easton name. But Megan only squared her shoulders, voice steady as flint. It's not your name anymore. In the hush that followed, it was clear nothing would ever be the same. When the deputies escorted her brother away, the judge's decision seemed almost an afterthought. This court orders all misappropriated assets returned to the Easton estate with immediate effect. Given the extent of fraud and punitive damages, the defendant is liable for treble damages plus lost wages to all dismissed factory employees since 2002. Patent proceeds to be audited and reassigned. Reporters snapped photos. The old Klan lawyer shook his head as if he'd seen a ghost. Family members hissed, but no one met Megan's eye. Marley clutched Megan's fingers. We did it, Mom. Megan pressed a kiss to her brow. We made it, baby. We're safe. We'll be more than safe. Word rushed through the Delta towns. Easton's prodigal daughter had not only outlasted the storm, but she'd rewritten its path. Her brother faced more than sentencing, fraud, theft, obstruction of justice. Even through the storm, nothing would keep justice off his trail now. Years in prison, a lifetime of infamy. His son, once promised a kingdom, left only rumors. Megan's reward wasn't numbers in a bank, not just. After final rulings, she hired back the workers her brother had cast off when he'd gutted the factory 10 years prior, keys jingling as she unlocked the doors that had gathered dust for too long. Marley ran through the hallways, high-fiving men and women who'd never thought they'd work here again. Megan met their eyes, no longer the family's charity case but someone who had stayed, dug, and dared to make the ruins home. Birdsong reopened too. The cracked sign was polished fresh, coffee brewed strong, and old vinyl played in the mornings. It wasn't fancy, but it belonged to her and no one else. Rumor had it that half the county's best pie crust came from there now. Some came to gawk, others to apologize. Most just wanted her to keep telling the story of silence, grit, and the single nurse nobody thought would win. Megan returned to work, scrubs swapped for denim and a tool belt. She hired single moms first. Marley decorated the office with her finger paintings. The storm thawed. The air, once full of accusation, grew gentler. In Otsiego's old barn, where truth had festered for decades, there was only the soft hum of people working, and, sometimes, the shrill joy of a child's laugh echoing against beams. It's one thing to be given your due, another to unearth it yourself when everyone says you can't. If you've ever lived in the shadow of someone else's lies and clawed your way into the sun, then let this be your proof. Some cycles can, indeed, be broken. Don't wait for permission to start over. Build your own restart, brick by brick, storm or not. You'll find that nothing is ever as ruined as they said. Years later, the courthouse memory faded, but the work never truly ended. After the headlines quieted, Megan found mornings unspooling in new ways, waking before dawn, slipping out to birdsong to turn the oven on and knead dough in the quiet. Marley, now long-legged and clever, would pad in, always searching for her mother first. One cloudy April morning, Megan crimped pie tins while listening to distant laughter from the dining room. The bell above the door jingled in a familiar way, hesitant and hopeful. Calvin's sandy head appeared, eyes bright as ever above his coffee-stained tie. "You up for visitors yet?" he asked. "As long as they want cinnamon rolls," she replied with a wry smile. He leaned against the counter, lowering his voice. "We heard from the state final audits closed, all your family's business clean, patents legit, residuals coming in steady now. You've got options, Meg." "Options," she repeated, as if untangling a foreign word. For years, everything had been survival, fighting a war no one else would claim. Now, security shimmered at her edges. Insurance cards paid up, Marley's college fund growing fat with late justice. "Your brother wrote from prison," Calvin said quietly. "Wanted to know if you'd let his son visit once he's released. Says he's sorry in his own twisted way." She set the rolling pin down, staring at her floured hands. "Maybe one day," she allowed, "if I can show his boy what real family looks like, I won't shut the door forever, but I can't unburden the truth for him." She brushed hair from her cheek, heart steady. He made his bed. Marley darted in then, fist clutching a fistful of wildflowers. "School says they want you to talk, Mom, about the restaurant. They said you're the town miracle." Megan laughed, the sound pure and startled. "Tell them the only magic here is sticking around." Calvin grinned. "You ever think you'd get here?" She flexed her fingers, eyes tracing the gold threads of sun finding their way through birdsong's scrubbed glass. "I hoped. I kept going even when I was scared." Calvin watched her, pride and friendship mingling in the lines at his eyes. "Some people build kingdoms. You built a home." Outside, the horizon shimmered in spring haze. In the fields beyond, the same that once threatened to strand her, cotton pushed green through winter-scabbed dirt. Farms opened again, families returned and took risks of their own, telling themselves if Megan Easton could do it, why not us? Lunch rush crested. Factory workers dropped by for the pecan pie. Old rivals turned regulars. Someone hung a photo over the register. Megan, Marley on her shoulders, dust swirling through sunbeams in birdsong's first reopened week. In the office, a box of children's shoes, collected for kids who'd lost homes in the last big storm, sat ready for delivery, as Megan quietly forged a new tradition, giving before being asked. One night, as thunder rolled far off, Megan found herself standing in the barn's shadow, breathing in the dusk. Marley, nearly taller now, pressed her shoulder against her mother's. "You ever miss how quiet it used to be? the girl teased. Not even a little, Megan replied, smiling. They traced the wall together, fingers grazing the uneven bricks. Marley's voice, soft and curious. Do you think Pop meant for us to find it all? The patent, the papers. Megan thought of her grandfather's note, never give up the north wall, its stubborn hope surviving storms, pride, and generations of silence. He trusted we'd finish what he started, she answered, that we'd turn secrets to something better. They stayed a while, watching the barn lights flicker on as employees bustled inside, windows aglow with the ordinary promise of work and warmth. For the first time in Megan's memory, the old Easton farm felt alive, not haunted. Marley leaned in. You built it all back up. Megan shook her head gently. We rebuilt. Nobody does it alone. Together they walked back toward Birdsong, where laughter spilled through the open doors, where coffee steamed and the walls rattled not with secrets but the music of a place finally, truly their own. In Otsego and the little towns stitched across the delta, stories changed quietly. A nurse and her daughter, an empire lost and found, a legacy salvaged not by birthright but by tenacity and love. Because sometimes a storm is just a storm, and sometimes it's the clean slate you didn't know you needed. And Megan, child of hardship, keeper of hard-won hope, learned at last that everything good and worth keeping must be unearthed, chosen, and claimed anew. And so, on a Tuesday thick with spring rain, Megan hung a new sign over Birdsong's door. Under the old family name, a single word was painted in Marley's looping hand: welcome. The sign was still drying in the morning light when the first customer of the day, a weathered woman Megan vaguely remembered from church suppers long ago, came in, peered up at the door, and smiled. That's new. Fits this place, she remarked, handing over loose coins for black coffee. Thank you, glad you're here, Megan replied, letting the words mean more than just small-town politeness. The bell jingled again. Calvin dropped off a sealed envelope, receipts from the last audit, stamped and finalized, and winked. You ever get tired of this, you let me know. Could use a partner on my softball team, he joked. Maybe I'll learn the rules first, she teased back, the easy warmth between them welcome and assured. Marley, hair wild from sleep, slipped onto a barstool with her textbooks. I have to write about my hero today, she announced with mock seriousness, scribbling at her notebook. When Megan ruffled her daughter's hair, Marley grinned. Don't worry, Mom, I didn't name the pie. Good, Megan laughed, relief settling deep and sure as roots. Tell them about the storm, how sometimes you get lucky enough to find home in the wreckage. Outside, the soaked fields gleamed gold-green beneath a clearing sky. People loaded bread into battered trucks. Factory gates swung wide on their new hinges. Even Megan's fiercest detractors lowered their chins in silent acknowledgement as they passed her at the post office, or asked after Marley's grades, or lingered an extra moment in the restaurant's doorway, breathing in cinnamon, safety, and possibility. As dusk edged the town, Megan turned off Birdsong's sign, heart aching with the unlikely fullness of a day spent well. She pressed her palm to the doorframe, old wood, scarred and strong, and whispered a promise meant for her family, her future, and herself. No more hiding. No more silence. Marley waited for her by the car, keys in hand, lifting her chin to the wind. Come on, Mom, she called. Let's go home. And Megan, for the first time since the world cracked open, didn't hesitate. She stepped into the evening light, hand in hand with her daughter, grateful for every hard mile behind them, ready, at last, to claim everything the storm had left for her.